welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at some source material that really gets into a sticky question: the difference between gender stereotypes, what we think is true, and the actual data-driven differences in abilities. Our mission here is to just separate the myth from the data for you.
It's a perfect topic for this because it's right at the intersection of culture, psychology, and biology. And we thought we'd frame it around a single event that really just blew this whole debate wide open.
Right. Let's unpack that.
Mhm.
We're going back to 2005. Lawrence Summers, who was president of Harvard at the time, he gives a speech and floats 3 ideas for why there aren't many women in top science and engineering jobs.
And 2 of them were, pretty standard: discrimination, lifestyle choices. But the third one, that was the one. He suggested it might be a difference in intrinsic genetic aptitude for math and science.
It was just an explosion.
Oh, a huge one. Someone walked out, the faculty held a no-confidence vote, and he ended up resigning the next year.
So we're using that whole controversy as our jumping off point to ask, what does the research actually say?
Well, you have to start with the stereotypes themselves, and it's important to define them as shared beliefs. These aren't necessarily your personal opinions, but what society as a whole tends to believe.
And there are 2 main themes that keep coming up in the research, right? 2 big buckets.
Exactly. Researchers call them agency and communion.
Okay. Agency and communion. Break that down for us.
Agency is stuff like assertiveness, competence, leadership, traits historically assigned to men. And communion is more about warmth, kindness, connection, traits more often ascribed to women.
What's really fascinating here is that those specific stereotypes seem pretty stable. Like 2014 data looks a lot like 1983 data, but at the same time, polls on overall competence show this huge shift.
A massive shift. Back in 1946, if you thought one gender is more intelligent, you probably said men. By 2018, that completely flipped. Among people who saw a difference, 65% said women were more competent and intelligent.
Wow. So the specific stereotypes persist, but the perception of overall value has totally reversed.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the actual data on abilities. What does the gender similarities hypothesis say?
It's a really important finding. It says that for about 78% of all psychological variables studied, the differences between men and women are small, or even 0.
So for the vast majority of things, we're more alike than we are different.
Precisely. IQ scores, for example, are nearly identical on average. But there is a twist called the greater male variability hypothesis.
That sounds very academic. Does it just mean you find more men at the very high end and the very low end of the spectrum?
That's it exactly. The average is the same, but the bell curve is wider and flatter for men. When you look at specific cognitive skills, you do see some small, consistent differences. Females tend to have an edge in verbal skills writing, reading fluency.
And what about the other